Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, and when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&A and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions, and best of all, it's totally free. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today.
Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten, football talk. Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten, football talk. Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten, football talk. Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten, football talk.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Big Ten Football Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Guggenheim. We are recapping Week 10 of the college football season. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Google, Spotify. Just a quick programming note. I am not going to be doing a recap next week for Week 11. I'm on vacation, and I will not be near my phone for most of the time. So if you're like, why am I not getting a Monday pod? It's because I'm on vacation and I love y'all, but I want to spend time with my wife. So that's my story. We're getting some sun. It's going to be great. Also, the next couple episodes are going to be not on YouTube, but they will be wherever you can get your podcasts. I won't be tweeting, won't be on Instagram or any of that stuff. But again, if you want to send me an email, big10footballtalk@gmail.com. Let's get into it. This was, I think, just a weird Saturday. And, you know, I'm going to just go through power rankings, go through what my thoughts are on just what I think about these teams. I think doing power rankings really... How do I say this? It demonstrates, I think, how weak the league is, if I'm honest. And coming into the season, I did not think it was a weak league. I thought it was a good league. I thought it would be strong. It has not been strong, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure how good even the top of the Big Ten is. And I don't say that to... I say that to give realistic expectations. Now, I also don't think that... I think the majority of college football is down this year. Like, I think there's more parity. I don't think there's an elite team. I'll say this, though. You know who I think an elite team is right now? Or is becoming an elite team? Alabama. I said it after the LSU game. I've been saying it for a good long while now. Don't be surprised if Alabama gets in the playoff. I'll say this now. Don't be surprised if Bama wins the championship. They were the best team I saw on Saturday night. Now, anything can change, right? You know, LSU was not 100%, but what Milroe is doing at quarterback, they have young players that are really starting to get it together. I think they are easily the best looking team right now. Better than Georgia. I think Georgia has its moments, but I don't think they're I don't think they're great right now. I think better than Michigan has looked. I think Michigan has been, again, the most complete team. But we'll get there. Let me start at the bottom of the conference. I think Purdue is my current bottom team in the Big Ten. I thought defensively they had some good moments against Michigan. I thought Tracy, the receiver, had some good moments. I thought, they were able to sting Michigan a couple times in the run game. Hudson Card had a rough day, and I think most quarterbacks have a rough day against Michigan's defense. But I thought they, at times, slowed Michigan down in ways I didn't expect. I thought they slowed down the run game quite a bit, more than I expected. And it was, Michigan did not cover. Now it was a backdoor cover for Purdue, but still, I thought it was I thought Michigan looked a bit lackluster. And I think part of that was that I think J.J. McCarthy was off. But I think part of it is I thought Purdue's defense, for as much as they were on the field, I thought they played okay. Surprised that they were even able to keep it within 4 touchdowns, if I'm honest. A lot of hubbub afterwards with Ryan Walters talking about the scandal, which I'm assuming there will be stuff coming out about that more this week. But, just to go back to Purdue did a good job defending the run against Michigan, 3.2 yards per carry. And that's including, I think, a 44-yard touchdown run, which was an end around, I believe, with their freshman, Samaj Morgan, who that guy is a problem. But Blake Corum, 44 yards, 15 carries. They did a good job on Michigan's run game. But again, it's hard when McCarthy has as much time as he does. Anyway, Purdue, I've got last. 13, I have Indiana. I moved Indiana up by the virtue of a win over Wisconsin. It was at home. And, Indiana still has an outside shot at a bowl game. Again, I wouldn't bank on it. But, I mean, it's good job by Indiana to stay in the hunt. It's 2 consecutive weeks where they have looked competent or at least adequate. They hung tough against Penn State, and now they beat Wisconsin. Granted, Wisconsin, a lot of injuries, backup quarterback, third string running back. Well, I'll talk about Wisconsin in a minute, but Indiana took advantage. Right, Sorsby is playing efficient football, higher than 60% completion percentage. Indiana's defense playing fairly well, right? They, really forced Wisconsin to have to throw. They were able to recover a couple of fumbles by Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin kind of shot themselves in the foot with this game with the turnovers, but good on Indiana to get a Big Ten win. And they are at 3-6, and they're my number 13 team. Number 12 is another team that had an upset, Michigan State. They were able to beat Nebraska at home. And again, I think Nebraska really shot themselves in the foot. I also think there was some pretty bad officiating in this. But I think it's hard to blame officiating when you have as many turnovers as Nebraska does. And I think Nebraska 6 or 7 out of 10 times beats Michigan State. But the reality is Nebraska, between injuries and lack of talent, this is a team that they don't have a lot of margin for error. So, they turn the ball over. Harburg has 2 interceptions. He has a lost fumble. Listen, that's a recipe for disaster. Like, you can't do that. And I don't care if you're playing Michigan State. You just can't do that and expect to win ball games, right? Michigan State, 0 turnovers. Like, you can't turn the ball over that many times. And I get it, officiating, not good. But at the same time, Nebraska has to kind of look at themselves and be like, how did we lose this one? Good job by the Spartans. Hauser played effectively. Foster had a big game, 94 yards and a touchdown. But Michigan State is my number 12 team, 3-6. Number 11 is Maryland. Maryland has a better record than other people, but they're tail spinning right now. I mean, they're atrocious. I don't know what's happened. I mean, they obviously played a weaker non-conference schedule, but this is a team I thought that could get to 9 wins, maybe 10. And I mean, they're a disaster. Just abject disaster. 4 turnovers in this game. Penn State ran the ball well in this game. Drew Aller played really well. 25 of 34, 240 yards, 4 touchdowns. They got Dante Cephas involved. They got the tight ends involved. Keandre Lambert-Smith again had a good day. It was a massive blowout, and it's what Penn State needed. They needed to go on the road, that's one key, and they needed to beat down on somebody, and they beat down a team that I thought was better. I mean, I don't know how Maryland has negative 49 yards rushing. It's absurd. I mean, it just... And a lot of that was sacks by Tagovailoa. Maryland's in a lot of trouble. If we're just being fair, Maryland is in deep trouble and in deep danger of not making a bowl game. Their schedule does not get easier. They have Michigan. They have Rutgers. Rutgers is a legitimately good team. They have Nebraska next week. That's the most winnable game on their schedule, and it's at Nebraska. And I'm not sure what to make of that. Because Nebraska did just lose to Michigan State, but I think Nebraska's going to be up for that game because they know they need to win at least one more game to get bowl eligible. So I've got Maryland at 11. Northwestern at 10. They hung tough against Iowa. Really tough against Iowa. I mean, game-winning field goal, right, for the Hawkeyes. And again, for everything at this point from Northwestern is bonus, in my opinion. I think David Braun has coached this team masterfully. Just really, really well done. For them to have 4 wins is big. But this one's going to sting a little bit because they were able to score and tie this game up in the fourth quarter, only for Iowa to be able to drive, and Drew Stevens hits a 52-yard field goal. And that, to be fair, that is how Iowa has won a lot of games over the years. Solid defense, good special teams. And so it wasn't a particularly fun game to watch. Northwestern outgained Iowa by a yard. They combined for 339 yards. Oof. And so Northwestern, I think Northwestern might be kicking themselves because I think they could have won this game. But at the end of the day, this is how Iowa knows how to win, right? Iowa knows how to win these games. And Northwestern, as exciting as it's been for David Braun, it's tough to beat a team that knows how to win like this all the time. So, but still, Northwestern has a win over Maryland. They have a win over Minnesota. I have them over Maryland this week. Another team I have over Maryland, team that beat Maryland, was Illinois at 9. Johnny Newton, he was the difference, man. That defense just got so much better when he got back in the lineup. And man, the poise of a backup quarterback in Paddock, right? Altmaier goes down. I thought Altmaier for the first 3 quarters played the best that he's played, and then got a little turnover prone. But then he goes down with an injury in the last drive, and their backup quarterback, John Paddock, leads them on just an incredible drive. I mean, it was bing bang boom. I think it was 3 plays, and he hits Isaiah Williams with that 46-yard touchdown to win the game for Illinois. I mean, you want to talk about gutsy. And again, Illinois kind of keeps their bowl hopes alive. I think Illinois fans have to be pretty excited right now. They have Indiana, Iowa, and Northwestern. Listen, that's very doable for them. Now, Illinois has been hot or cold, so you can't miss the layups. And I don't know if I would say Illinois or Northwestern are layups, but you can't miss foul shots. Maybe that's the better thing to say. They can beat both those teams. I think they're more talented than both those teams. So good on Illinois. My number 8 team is Nebraska. And again, this is where I say I just don't. This conference is down. Nebraska is the 8th best team in the Big Ten in my estimation. And that's not very good. And please don't hear me saying I think Nebraska is bad. Matt Rule deserves a lot of credit because that team doesn't have a ton of talent. They've lost a lot of guys. Like, I think their whole running back room is gone except Johnson, right? They don't have a quarterback who can complete a forward pass, at least without some sort of turnover. But my point is, they've won 5 games, and you look at, they're 3-3 in the Big Ten. They're not a very good team this year. And they're middle of the pack in the Big Ten. I think it's a reset year for the Big Ten, right? A lot of quarterbacks from last year have moved on. And so you just have a lot of quarterbacks that they've transferred in and they have not hit, or a lot of young starters. And I think that's been a trouble spot for several teams, and Nebraska is one of them. Nebraska should have beat Michigan State. I think, if they don't turn the ball over like they did, I think they win that game. Instead, the Spartans have enough to beat Nebraska. And now instead of being at 6-3, you're at 5-4. And now you gotta fight to win another game to get bowl eligible. I still think Matt Rule's doing a good job, but it's telling to me that that's where we are in the conference. And continuing on that trend, Minnesota, same thing. They lose to Illinois, had a chance to get bowl eligible, and I thought, I went into that game after I saw the result, and I thought, PJ Fleck, he botched it. He did a bad job. And I don't think he managed the game terribly well. But Kaliak Manis had a good start to the game. I think he was 9 for 11 at one point. Ended for 11 to 22. And again, it kind of highlights, the quarterback play in this conference. A lot of people were clamoring for Kaliak Manis over Tanner Morgan. I think a lot of people want Tanner Morgan back. And he's young. Kaliak Manis is young. They're on their, they're using their 4th string running back a lot. The offensive line's still a work in progress. But this team, they're 5-4. They're middle of the pack. And I think you put them against the middle of the pack against other teams, I'd be concerned. Right now, Minnesota, not a great football team. But they're middle of the pack. Wisconsin, number 6. This is the other thing. I wanted to move teams down this week. Everybody I wanted to move down, or I was looking for teams to move above Wisconsin, and I'm like, I can't move anybody above Wisconsin. I certainly can't put Indiana above Wisconsin because, no offense to Indiana, that was their first Big Ten win. I just can't. And so, Wisconsin is 6, and I'm like, it's hard to kind of wrap my mind around Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska, Illinois, Northwestern, Maryland, Michigan State. They're all in this same tier, and it's not good. right? And Wisconsin is there much more, I think, because of injury than any of the others. I think injuries have impacted other teams. I think Wisconsin. I think you lose Braylon Allen. I think Braylon Allen beats Indiana, right? But the fact that you lost to Indiana, and no offense to Indiana, Indiana's not good. But you lost. Now, granted, you don't have your top two running backs. You don't have DK. You don't have your starting quarterback. So part of it is a lack of depth. But also, man, you can't lose to Indiana. And so I've got Wisconsin 6. Beyond that, number 5, I have Iowa. Iowa wins games despite the fact that their offense is abysmal. Granted, they lost to Minnesota. Again, margin of victory or margin for error is small. But you know who's in sole possession of first place right now in the West? Iowa. And I'm not so sure. I think they're going to be the Big Ten representative, the West representative in the Big Ten championship. I don't know if they're going to score in the Big Ten championship game, but I think they're going to be the representative in the West. That being said, I think they lose next week to Rutgers, and they're my number 4 team. I think Rutgers has done such an amazing job of building. Greg Schiano deserves a lot of credit for this team. And part of it is the development of players. I knew they had some defensive studs. I didn't realize how many. Their corners are legit. Legit guys. Flip Dixon at safety, legit. Mohamed Toure, legit. Aaron Lewis, I believe it is, on the defensive line, really good. Their run defense struggles, but their pass rush is really good. And while Wimsatt, I saw a lot about Wimsatt after the game being oh, he's not very good. Listen, he's still a game wrecker as a runner. And the fact that they have that changeup, yeah, he missed some plays. Listen, if he hits his receiver, and I'm forgetting the name of the receiver, but he was giving Ohio State heartburn all game. I'm going to look it up right now because he deserves to be mentioned on this podcast. But he missed a wide open receiver. This game could have easily been different. Dremel. How did I forget? Christian Dremel. Dremel was giving Ohio State all it could handle today. Or on Saturday. And if Wimsatt is more accurate, I think Rutgers, if they don't win, it's a 1-score game. I thought Wimsatt, as a runner, played well. Kyle Monangai might be the all Big Ten first team running back. He's right now my leader in the clubhouse. He played a heck of a game. Right? 24 carries, 159 yards. I mean, they've got answers now. And while it's not pretty, Gavin Wimsatt has to be more accurate. But what he's able to provide with his legs, it does cause tension against defenses. And so I think Rutgers has to be really pleased. This was, it was a 19-point win. It did not feel like a 19-point win. I think Ohio State was lucky to get out of Piscataway with a cover, and I think even with a win. Number 3, I have Penn State. It's kind of the same 3, but they did what they need to do. Aller is starting to look better. I'm really excited to see what he looks like against Michigan next week. Number 2, I have Michigan. I had thought about flipping Ohio State and Michigan this week. And the 2 reasons why I haven't. One, I still think you have to honor Ohio State's resume. Even though Notre Dame lost, that's still it's better than anything Michigan has. It's better than anything Penn State has. The other thing is I have a growing concern about Michigan's run game. I don't know what it is. but their offensive line isn't blowing guys off the ball like I think any of us expected. They averaged 3 yards a carry, and that was including a 44-yard end around. That's not good, and that's against a bad defense. Right? Like, Ohio State was in their fourth string running back against Purdue, and they had one of their best running performances all year long. And it's not just Michigan against Purdue. It's been a trend over the past few weeks. They have not run the ball well. And I was going into the Penn State game, I assumed that Michigan would be able to run the ball. If Michigan can't run the ball, that's going to be a problem with JJ playing, throwing against these corners. Like, Dixon will be healthy. Kalen King, those two corners are easily better than anything they faced up to this point. And Drew Aller at home is better than Drew Aller away. So I'm pretty convinced I'll still pick Michigan, but that game is not as easy for Michigan as I think people might think it is. And so I'm concerned about Michigan and their run game moving forward. Be interesting to see how they attack and if they can get push against a lighter front with Penn State. Number one, I have Ohio State based on the resume. They looked like they should have gotten beat by Rutgers. Now, a lot of injuries. Cade Stover was out. A lot of their defensive backfield was out. So, how bad was it? I don't know. Like, I think Emeka is still working his way back into the lineup. But Ohio State's not progressing either, at least in certain areas. I don't think Kyle McCord is progressing game to game. The run game is progressing. That's an encouraging sign. But I think you have a few, and I think this is true of Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. I think you have 3 teams who are good, not great. And I think you line each of them up against Bama or Georgia or Florida State. I think all 3 of them lose at this point. Now, I think if teams can get it together, I think they can win. Florida State's iffy for me, by the way. And Georgia's iffy for me because I think both of those teams have struggled. Alabama, though, the way they're progressing, I think they are top notch. Let me go to my top 10. And it's just hard to figure out where I want to put teams and where I want to place teams. I've got Georgia 1 this week. And I think their win against Missouri, it gives them a resume win. And I just don't think you can put Ohio State 1 with the way Kyle McCord has looked. I just think the loss the loss that Notre Dame takes, it just takes luster off that win. And so I think it's razor thin in terms of resume, but I've got Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Florida State 3. To struggle like they did against Pitt, I think Florida State's really good. I think it's razor thin from a resume perspective with Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State. But I don't think Florida State. I think Florida State's pretty hot and cold, and so I think hot Florida State can beat anybody. I think cold Florida State can lose to a lot of teams. So Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, Michigan. Again, their best win is Rutgers at this point. And I want to, if they beat Penn State this week, they will probably be my number 1 team going into next week. Washington at 5, they outlasted USC. Bama 6, they're easily the best 1-loss team in the country. Oregon 7, Oregon is really good. I'm not sure how good. I think a lot of people are trying to say that Oregon's better than Washington, better than a lot of teams. I think they are really good. I just don't. Sometimes looks can be deceiving. So I'll just leave it at that. Texas at 8, Penn State at 9, Ole Miss at 10. And that'll do it for the recap. Thanks for listening. Again, I'll be doing picks, and then I will be taking a break until next Thursday. Until I will not be doing a recap next week. So, but keep it locked in here. This has been the Big Ten Football Talk Podcast. Signing off. Take care. God bless.